As immigration protests continue in Los Angeles streets, a legal battle is unfolding inside a California federal courtroom. A federal judge yesterday denying California's request to immediately block the Trump administration from sending in U.S. Marines and the state's National Guard troops. Meantime, people are back in downtown L.A. today, as are hundreds of state and local law enforcement. Michael Yoshida is there as well.
Right now, a calm start to the day here in downtown Los Angeles following the first night of a curfew. It did impact roughly a 1 square mile area. You can see behind me just maybe a dozen to 2 dozen protesters here outside that detention facility, which has been the focus of protests over the last 5 days. Also, some National Guard members there as well. All of this happening as the showdown continues between the Trump administration and California leaders over immigration policies and enforcement.
We're not frightened to do something else if we need to.
U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi standing firm behind the president's actions in Los Angeles, placing hundreds of Marines on standby just outside the city and mobilizing the National Guard.
To protect our federal buildings, to protect the highways, to protect the citizens.
This morning, the U.S. Northern Command says those Marines are still undergoing training, including how to use non-lethal weapons.
These are the men and women trained for foreign combat, not domestic law enforcement.
On a New York Post podcast today, Trump says he feels more emboldened in his second term.
I can be stronger on an attack on Los Angeles. I think bringing in the National Guard 4 years ago or 8 years ago would have been more difficult.
California Governor Gavin Newsom has accused the president of dangerously inflaming the situation by sending in Marines and National Guard troops.
Democracy is under assault before our eyes.
An overnight curfew has been in effect in parts of downtown to tamp down potentially violent agitators and run-ins with the LAPD.
This was provoked by the White House. I posit that maybe we are part of a national experiment to determine how far the federal government can go in reaching in and taking over power from a governor.
The mayor says the curfew, which covers about 1 square mile of downtown LA, is likely to continue for a few more days. LA's unrest comes as similar protests take place in several other cities like New York, Austin, Washington, D.C., and Chicago.
And we are told that the curfew that did impact, again, roughly a 1 square mile area here in downtown LA is likely to continue for several days. In Los Angeles, I'm Michael Yoshida reporting.
And joining us now is King 5 law enforcement analyst, former King County Sheriff John Urquhart. Thanks for being with us. So first, I want your reaction just to what we're seeing on the streets of Los Angeles with the National Guard there, with the Marines on standby outside the city.
Well, I try to not look too much at the National Guard or the Marines and look more at what the police response is and how they're doing. And they seem to be controlling the situation as best they can. I mean, there's a lot going on and they have a lot to do. And it goes on day after day so far, at least.
When the National Guard troops are there on the ground, does that raise tensions, heighten anxiety, or does that help the situation in your mind as a former law enforcement officer?
I'm not happy about it, quite frankly. The last time we had National Guard in Seattle was in 1999 during WTO. I think it was called for, it was needed then. I don't think, looking from the outside, I don't think it's needed in Los Angeles. Remember, Los Angeles PD is 8,000 officers, Sheriff's Office is 9,000, and they've got all kinds of other police agencies in the area. They've got more than enough people there. I think that, and I hate to say it, but I think politics has been injected into this situation there, and that's always too bad.
I guess what I want to hear from you, for the people on the ground, the protesters, does it, and law enforcement, does it make things worse or does it maintain peace?
Oh, I think it makes things worse. And the problem is what could happen when you have all those soldiers there, whether they're Marines or the National Guard, that haven't been trained as well as the police have, and maybe don't know what they're doing as well, and are injected into a situation that the police can handle. And I go back to 2 words, Kent State. It's been 55 years since Kent State. That wasn't the police. That was National Guard that weren't trained well enough and clearly overreacted. 4 days later, University of New Mexico in Albuquerque, 10 people were stabbed with bayonets when the National Guard attacked a protest. Luckily, none of them died, but they could have. It's a recipe for what could go wrong, and that makes me very, very nervous.
And as you know, we have an anti-ICE rally that's planned Cal Anderson Park tonight. We have the No Kings rallies, 1,500 cities across the United States, including Seattle, Everett, Tacoma. What do you anticipate is going to happen? Best case scenario tonight and over the weekend, and worst case?
Best case scenario, at least in Seattle, is nobody gets arrested, no property gets damaged, there's no looting, no vandalism, none of that. I will be surprised if that happens.
Expectations, what do you think?
Expectations, there's going to be looting. There may not be looting, but there's going to be bottles thrown, there's going to be people injured, there's going to be police officers injured, there's going to be protesters injured. That's what's going on right now. And until this winds down and runs its course, it's going to continue, not only in Seattle, but all across the country.
And so do you anticipate then we'll see more National Guard troops called into Seattle, Chicago, other cities this weekend, this week?
Well, when we're dealing with who we're dealing with, who knows if there are going to be more National Guard called out. I hope not. I think all these big cities can handle it with their police officers that are trained in crowd management. They know what they're doing, and they can do it if they're allowed to do their job. And you know, look what's happened in LA. Things have calmed down. Certainly the curfew last night helped. It's going to be there tonight, and I'm sure the mayor will continue it as long as necessary. But they can handle it. They don't need the help of the National Guard to control those crowds.
You know, the crowds are protesting ICE raids. Anything outside of that is a distraction from what they're actually protesting. So, you know, it remains to be seen how this is all going to evolve. But right now, the focus is where the protesters want it to be as they exercise their First Amendment rights. What do you think will happen if we do see National Guard troops here on the ground in Seattle?
Hopefully they will just stand back, just stay away, let the police do their job. Put a ring around the federal courthouse if that's what they need to do, and leave it at that. Do not become engaged with the protesters. Let the police do that. That's the best case. That's the best thing that could happen.
And your advice to protesters?
Keep it legal. Simple as that.
Yeah. And all will be well.
We
Let's
hope.
hope that you are right. Sheriff Urquhart, we always appreciate your expertise because you've been on the streets in our city and our county, so thank you.
And I was also on the riot squad for quite a while with the sheriff's office.
That's right. Your experience is extensive. That's why you're here. That's why you're here. Thanks. Thanks
you
so much.